Hello, thank you very much for joining today. This is Eric, aka Wolfbitten. I'm very glad you stopped in. We're going to have a really interesting little thing today. Uh, we're going to be discussing Mary Schweitzer's paper on the soft animals tissue that were found has been found in dinosaur bones, dinosaur horns, and etc. Um, we're going to go into great depth because I want you to understand what was not found. I want you to understand what was found. And I want you to understand what they've done to prove what's found, what they've the tests that they've done to see how long these things can possibly last, these various proteins and etc. And what's that say for evolution? What does that say for our understanding of the current timeline that we're taught? That these things died out tens of millions of years ago, in some cases, hundreds of millions of years ago, according to their timeline. So, without further ado, let me get right into this. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. First of all, the first three things that were found that made public attention uh, were a triceratops horn, the leg bone of a T Rex, and a hadrosaur. So they've Mary Schweitzer, as a matter of fact, was the finder of two of these. She found soft tissue in the T Rex and the hadrosaur bone. Um, there was another tenured member of a university out in California that found a triceratops horn with living, well, not living, but biological tissue that was unfossilized. So, what was not found? This is important for you to understand because a lot of Christians get this wrong. When I say soft tissue was found, I'm not talking about they dug up a leg bone that had hunks of meat hanging off of it. It wasn't anything like that. These were uh, bones that were found and horns that were found. And inside these bones and horns uh, was found a biological tissue that had not become fossilized. So, the way this was found, Mary Schweitzer was part of this dig where they found the T Rex, and this leg was too big to cart back as it was, and so they had to actually break it. Now, when they got back to the lab, Mary took a piece of this bone and demineralized it. She soaked it in a solution, and then when she was done soaking it, she started finding this stretchy material that was left inside it. And she put it under a glass, and lo and behold, what she had actually found were biological tissues. She found, for instance, blood veins, blood vessels. And inside the tracks of these blood vessels, she saw red cell like structures, leading her to believe that these were red blood cells. She found collagen. She found other materials, osteocytes, for instance. Now, what's an osteocyte? An osteocyte is created by an osteoblast. Our bones, fully formed bones, muscles can wear and tear on them as we grow older, as we age. And osteoblasts will lay down over top of the bone. They will secrete this material and they become osteocytes. They actually become part of the bone, cells of the bone, as we grow older and our bones mature and wear down, etc. But these are some of the things that she actually did find. So, it wasn't like finding clumps of meat on bone, but it was all these things that were encased within the bone that should not have been there. So, if we go to, let me see, I'm going to read something to you. Bear with me just a moment. Let me pull up this little. Copy this. Pardon me just a minute. Okay. Now, this comes from www.science20.com. And this is going to describe some of the things that she found. Okay, 20 years ago, Mary Schweitzer found herself the closest that anyone has ever been to a living dinosaur as she examined a thin slice of a T-Rex bone fragment under a microscope. She realized she was looking at what appeared to be preserved red blood cells, which had no place in a 65-million-year-old fossil. It was the first time that anyone had found evidence that biological materials could survive the passage of millions of years. You're going to see later that this is untrue. Now, everything so far is true except for this being the first time anything like this had been found. But it does challenge one of the central beliefs of paleontologists, proving that what she was seeing had in fact once been dinosaur cells was a tall order. However, and one so outrageous at the time, it was so outrageous to believe that this actually came from the dinosaur, that it was met with considerable hostility from her peers. Now, that part is true too. Mary Schweitzer was ridiculed, as was Jack Horner. Jack Horner. Jack Horner was her boss. Jack Horner is probably the foremost paleontologist of the last 100 years. He was the paleontologist on set for all three of the original Jurassic Park movies. He was the one that determined in, I believe it was the 1980s, that T-Rex raised their families. They didn't just abandon their young. So, Mr. Horner is an atheist. This is important to understand. And when they found these blood vessels and blood cells and collagen in this dinosaur bone, the scientific world went nuts. Mr. Horner, his reputation was at stake. This can't possibly be. Here's this young scientist working with him in his lab, and they claim to find soft dinosaur tissue in these bones. That can't be. Can't possibly be. It had to be biofilm. That was the criticism they were receiving. But I'm going to go on to read. Okay, when Schweitzer first claimed to have found the red blood cells in a T-Rex leg bone in 1993, her findings were dismissed by most scientists because it seemed improbable, not to mention downright impossible, that red blood cells could have survived a 65-million-year-old bone. But Schweitzer received her PhD for her work on proving that the cells had originated from once living dinosaur cells. The controversy was renewed in 2005 when Schweitzer reported finding collagen, a tough, elastic structural protein in fossilized bones. And since then, Schweitzer has found evidence of blood vessels, feather fibers, osteocytes, associated with fossilized dinosaur bone. Now, that's according to science20.com. So, why did widespread criticism in the scientific community arise? Because it was impossible that this stuff survived 65 million year old bone. In the case of the hadrosaur, 75 to 80 million years old, they say. Now, we have, you're going to see talk in her papers about the Mesozoic period. Now, I want you to understand what the Mesozoic is. The Mesozoic consisted of three periods that I'm sure everybody here has heard of. You've heard of the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous. The Triassic being the oldest of the Mesozoic time period, the Jurassic in the middle, as in Jurassic Park, and then the Cretaceous was the most modern of the three eras within the Mesozoic, and it ended roughly 65 million years ago, we're told. Now, her response to these naysayers came in the form of a paper. I'm going to copy this here. I want to bring it up, so bear with me just a moment. The first thing that they did when they were being ridiculed, because now Mary Schweitzer had to prove something to the world. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't an irresponsible scientist. She knew the difference between biological materials and biofilms. And so did Mr. Horner, who was her boss and the scientist with all of this stuff at stake. His own reputation was at stake. So they had to do something quickly, do something, well, it had to be kind of drastic. So here's what they did. I want to screen share this. So bear with me just a second here. Okay. There you go. Testing the hypothesis of biofilm as a source of soft tissue. Now, I guess she did this to kind of rub it in their faces. In other words, this is the name of her paper. And this is part of how she earned her PhD, was through this paper. And what they did, all they simply did, they took these dinosaur bone samples that they had, and they ran hundreds of tests, the very same test, over and over and over and over again. And they had other people working in their lab running the same test simultaneously. And every single time, they were left with blood vessels and collagen and red blood cells in the tracks of these blood vessels. So they proved that this is not biofilm. This is indeed soft biological materials that were found in these dinosaur bones. So there's no question about it. Now, a lot of atheists will try to say, "Oh, well, that was debunked." Well, no, it's not debunked. It's commonly accepted now to be fact. So that was how Mary answered her critics. But I want you to know something. When Mary did her later paper in 2014, she didn't just reveal the fact that this really is materials within dinosaur bone that shouldn't exist. She revealed something else too. And I'm going to pull this up for you. This is a paper that Mary wrote in 2014. Now, in this paper here, she is attempting to show that these tissues can be preserved for a longer period of time. Now, we're going to go over what this actually means and how this breaks down in a little bit, so bear with me. Also, if there's any naysayers in the audience that may want to challenge anything I say, I don't mind at all. If you want to challenge me, that is perfectly fine. But I do want you to wait until the end when I'm finished revealing all of this. So, bear with me just a moment here. So what we're going to see here, this is the paper she wrote in 2014, talking about a role for oxygen and iron playing a part in the preservation of these tissues. Let me accept the cookies here so we can see this article again. And as we go down, you're going to see something extremely interesting here. Now, I'm going to skip on down to the introduction first, because I want you to understand something. We're going to go read a little bit of the introduction here down to, about halfway down. Introduction. Preservation of structures in fossils that were not originally mineralized in the living organisms. Now understand what she's saying here and pay attention. Not originally mineralized. Preservation of structures in fossils that were not originally mineralized in the living organisms is uncommon, but it is represented in microbes, plants, and animals in disparate environments throughout the fossil record. And one references therein. Soft tissue structures retaining some aspects of original material. These are original blood vessels, original red blood cells, original collagen that's found in biological materials, and thus not completely replaced replicas. In other words, these were not completely fossilized. They have been described in Mesozoic fossil bone as early as the 1960s. Now, the Mesozoic period can go back over to 250 million years, allegedly. But she's saying that these things have been found ever since the 1960s. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Why is this important? Because we didn't catch wind of this until like 2005, 2011, 2013, 2014. This was kept quiet. Why was this kept quiet? Let me point something out here. Do you understand how odd it is that this would be kept quiet if they've been finding this stuff since the 1960s? Because every scientist out there is clamoring for attention. They're clamoring because there's very little money in this unless you're tenured or hold some sort of prestigious position. There's very little money in this. Now, Mary, she broke pretty lucky. She was working for a prestigious lab, but she was losing credibility because she actually found something that she shouldn't have found. She was attacked. Jack Horner was attacked. They were attacked for finding something they shouldn't have found. So the fact that people have been finding this since the 1960s and they shut up about it is odd. Now, I think this shows two things. First of all, some of these people were probably intimidated, knowing that they would receive the same criticism that Mary received and that Mr. Horner received, and they just decided to shut up about it. Some of them could have been threatened. Well, you can't reveal this. Do you realize what it will do? Do you realize the laughing stock you'll be? Some of them may have had a position that they had to protect. Most of these people, you can have some sort of a family that they have to look out for. They have their own reputation at stake. At any rate, this implies a conspiracy, because there had to be more than two people involved here if one person finds this, and who knows, some of these finds there may have been several people involved, and everybody decides to shut up. What's going on here? But they've been finding this stuff since the 1960s. That's over 50 years of silence, my friends. That says a lot right there. So, I want you to know that this silence is still going on too. You know something, when you begin to take things off the table, when you begin to bury the evidence, it's no longer science. What is it if it's not science? Well, it becomes pseudoscience. It becomes biased science. And biased science is not science, my friends. It is not science. So bear with me just a moment here. I need to pull this up. I want to show you something that's pretty unbelievable. You're not going to believe this unless I show it to you. I'm pretty sure. So here we go. Now this is an interview from a fellow named Bob Enright. Bob Enright is a radio talk show host, and here he's talking to Jack Horner. Jack Horner is the fellow that found whose office Mary Schweitzer found the soft dinosaur tissue in. And let me make sure you can see this. Now, Mr. Enright called Mr. Horner. He called him at his laboratory, at his office. And, okay, let me pull up the other screen so you can see this. Jack Horner turns down a sizable offer to have these bones carbon tested. Now, this really happened. I will put this in the description for any of you that want to actually hear this interview. But Bob Enright is interviewing Jack Horner at his office, at his laboratory, and he says, look, I represent a bunch of people. And he introduces himself, tells them exactly who he is. And I have a bunch of people that are interested in having this tested, C14 tested. And we would like for you to subject these bones to C14 tests to see if they test young. He offered him, at first, he offered him $10,000. The offer got up to $20,000. Plus, they would pay to have the test done, which runs $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000, depending on what you're doing. Just your average standard C14 test. Jack Horner refused $20,000 to have it tested. And to have the cost of the test paid for by this group of Christians. And what was his reason for turning this down? His reason for turning it down is because he knew that they would find C14 in these bones. You're about to see something else here shortly. You see, these the C14 has been found in scores and scores of dinosaur bone samples, just one after the other. As a matter of fact, it's got to the point now that so many dinosaur bones have been found C14 rich that they're actually doing peer-reviewed papers on this now, explaining how can this possibly be? Because all of them, every single one, is testing between 9,000 and 40,000 years old. That's right, 9,000 to 40,000 years old. So, what's going on here? Well, according to this, these papers that they're putting out now, these peer-reviewed papers, they're actually discrediting their own dating methods. They're saying you can't trust this. Every single sample, this is scores of samples, if not hundreds. Every single one of them were corrupted. Every single one of the tests were corrupted. They are discrediting their own dating systems. Look, if every single one of these is corrupted, if single one of these leached in, leached out, etc., then it's going to be that way for any isotope that you test. So if you can't trust this, you can't trust any of them. So we see that not only has there been a cover-up since the 1960s, we see that Mary's boss, Mr. Horner, is not any longer practicing science because he is not going to apply science to actual testing of this bone. You see, I understand if you think that right off the bat that these bones are millions of years old, I understand why you wouldn't want to carbon-14 test it. But all of a sudden you find soft tissue in these bones. That tells you something else. These things can't last millions of years, and you're going to find out that's true in just a moment. By their own math. So why not C14 test these bones? And why not trust the C14 test if they tell you these bones are between 9,000 and 40,000 years old? Because they're protecting a paradigm. It is no longer science now if you're not willing to apply scientific method, because this is your pet theory and it's going to come against everything you've always stood up for and believed and preached and taught, etc. So in my book, Mr. Horner is no longer even a scientist. Now, Mary did another paper in 2011. Let me pull this one up for you. I'm going to put all of these in the description later on so that all of you can access this anytime you want it. Just bear with me just a moment. This is another scientific peer-reviewed journal. And Mary wrote this in 2011. So this was like 3 years before her 2014 paper on the how this could possibly be preserved. Soft tissue preservation in terrestrial Mesozoic vertebrates. Now, in this, Mary states skin and scales, keratin, containing tissues probably constitute the largest group of original soft tissues reported in the fossil record, second only to biomineralized bone, teeth, and shells, and its presence associated with the Mesozoic organisms dates back to the turn of the 20th century. In other words, they've been finding skin, scales, keratin since the turn of the 20th century, since the early 1900s. My friend, that's over 100 years. That's over 100 years of silence. What's biomineralized mean? Biomineralized means that this is bone or teeth or shell or something like this that soft tissue is turning up in. It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be in the bones. It shouldn't still be in the shell. It shouldn't still be in the teeth. It should have been completely fossilized if it's 1,000,000 years old or older. But these things can't even be 1,000,000 years old. Not if these dinosaur bones are testing between 9 and 40,000 years. And you're going to see something even more damning here in a second. I'm going to take you back here to Mary's 2014 paper. And we are going to share this again so you can see it. Bear with me just a moment here, if you would please. Sorry, we're moving a little bit slow here. Having a few internet problems. I think that's kind of insane, but yes, it is happening. So bear with me just a moment. We're almost there. Okay. Now this, I'm going to move you back up a little bit to the abstract. Okay. The persistence of original soft tissues in Mesozoic fossil bone is not explained by current chemical degradation models. In other words, these things have a half-life. And according to these half-lives, like the half-life of collagen, vascular collagen, is only 60 to 70 days. After 10 half-lives, you shouldn't have hardly any of it left. And yet we're still finding these soft tissues and bones that are supposed to be from the Mesozoic at least 65 million years ago. And nothing that we know of today explains this. She goes on to say, we did identify iron particles associated with soft tissues. That's because red blood cells was part of what was found, and that's rich in iron. So, iron particles were associated with this, and she's suspecting that iron may in fact be able to help preserve these things longer than they would normally be preserved. So, in another paper, she theorizes that maybe iron plus sedimentation equals the possibility that you can preserve these longer than normal. Well, let's go on down and see what she says. What they did, they took the hemoglobin from an ostrich egg, and they began using blood proteins. They mixed it with the hemoglobin of this ostrich egg, and they found out that they were able to extend it from 3 days, the preservation from 3 days. Some of these proteins have a normal half-life of 3 days. So that's probably what she was working with. It doesn't say in particular, but she does say that they were able to preserve them from 3 days to more than 2 years. In an ostrich blood vessel model developed to test post-mortem tissue fixation. In other words, 3 days to 2 years, this is just more than 200-fold. She was actually able to preserve this stuff more than 200-fold. Now, what does this mean in terms that we can understand? Let's do the math. Okay, vascular collagen. And I can pull all this up for you right here. It's going to take a little bit of time since we have slow internet, but bear with me, and this way you'll be able to see for yourself that I'm not leading you astray. Vascular collagen has a half-life of 60 to 70 days. Bear with me just a moment. I'm taking you to another peer-reviewed article here. Okay, and this paper is from the Royal Society Publishing, and it says specifically vascular collagen has a normal half-life of 60 to 70 days. So that would be this article right here. Turnover of fibular collagen in soft biological tissue with application to the expansion of abdominal aortic aneurysms. So this is talking about the vascular collagen and its half-life. But we don't want to use that. We want to see what the half-life is for collagen that's found in. Now, skin collagen is 15 years. The half-life of skin collagen is 15 years. But we don't even want to use that. This is what we want to use. I could be unfair and use the 60 to 70 day. Pardon me a second. I could use the 60 to 70 day half-life of the vascular collagen, or I could use the 15-year half-life of the collagen that's found in skin, but we're not going to use either one. This is another peer-reviewed paper from PubMed.gov, and it talks about the collagen that's found in cartilage, and it tells us down here that cartilage that is found in, collagen that's found in cartilage has a half-life of 117 years. Let me pull this up. Yeah, here it is right here. 117 years. And skin collagen is 15 years. So we're going to use the longer period, not the 60 to 70 day, not the 15 years. We're going to use the 117-year half-life of collagen that's found in cartilage. Now, how many of you know anything about half-lives? I'm going to explain a half-life to you. A half-life is like, let's use C14 for instance. The half-life of C14 is 5,730 years, give or take 40 years. So if you have carbon-14 at the end of one half-life, it doesn't matter how much you originally began with, at the end of 5,730 years, you're going to have 50% of your original C14 left. Only 50% of it. At the end of the second half-life, for another 5,730 years, you're only going to have 25% of it left. At the end of the third half-life, you're only going to have 12.5% of it left. At the end of the fourth half-life, you're only going to have 6.25% of it left. And it goes on down to 10 half-lives. At 10 half-lives, you have less than 1/10 of 1% of it left. So that's why when we are C14 using C14 to test the age of something, they generally will not test anything that's over 50,000 years old, that they assume is over 50,000 years old. Why is that? I'm going to show you this now. This is why. Because at the end of 10 half-lives, you basically don't have anything to work with. Okay? Science questions and answers. How do geologists use carbon dating to find the age of the rocks? And you'll see right here, geologists do not use carbon-based radiometric dating to determine the age of rocks. They use it for biological materials. Carbon dating only works for objects that are younger than about 50,000 years. So, you see, that's because at the end of 10 half-lives, or 57,000 years, you shouldn't have hardly any of it left, according to normal circumstances. So now let's consider what we have here. 10 half-lives is the extent of something, the viability of something that you should be able to find that in your sample. Up to 10 half-lives, and then after that, not so much. It's not likely at all. So, let's take the 117-year half-life of collagen that is found in cartilage. And remember, we're using the longest one available to us. We're not using the 60 or 70-day vascular collagen, which is probably what was found, since they found vascular tissues with red blood cells. We're not using the 15-year skin half-life of collagen. We're using the 117 years half-life that is found in cartilage, the collagen found in cartilage. So 117 years, multiply that by your 10 half-lives to where you should end up with nothing of it left. None of it should be left in your sample at the end of 10 half-lives, basically. That is only going to give you 1,170 years. That's 10 half-lives times 117 years. Easy math, 1,170 years. Now multiply that by Mary's 200-fold increase, because that's what she found. She was able to increase the longevity of these materials that she tested, these proteins that lasted from 3 days to 2 years, 200-fold. So 1,170 years times 200-fold, that only gives you 234,000 years. And not a second older. That's the extreme upper limit that these bones can possibly be, is 234,000 years old. And they say man's been around that long. But wait. To get to 80 million years, you don't need a 200-fold increase. You need a 680,000-fold increase. Get that. not a 200-fold increase. You need a 680,000-fold increase to reach 80 million years. They're not even reaching a 250,000 years with 200-fold increase here. Now, Mary is letting quite a few cats out of the bags in her papers here. She's letting us know this stuff has been kept from us. It's been kept quiet since the turn of this 20th century. Ever since the early 1900s. And through the 1960s. This stuff's been kept from you. I submit that it's so they can preserve a paradigm. But at any rate, we see that this can't possibly be by Mary's own math, by her own calculations. Now, Mary is quite smart. She's letting a cat out of the bag a little bit at a time, and in minute amounts, and she's absolutely prepared to prove herself right in everything that she says and does here. So when she came out with the fact that they found collagen and they found these soft tissues, she was ready for the blowback. And when the blowback came, she put her experiments up. She got her PhD by proving herself right. And now this lady that gets her PhD through these papers that are now accepted is telling us that they were only able to get a 200-fold increase, my friend. Not a 680,000-fold increase that they needed to reach 80 million years. Only a 200-fold increase. So these bones can't be 250,000 years old. Now, when you take the other tests that prove this, these bones aren't that old, the C14 tests that they're clamoring to cover up, they're clamoring to explain away. Oh, well, every single one was corrupted. I don't buy that. I'm sorry. That reeks of desperation in my book. So, there you have two lines of science. Actual testing. Okay, the rest of this crap is hypothetical. 80 million years, 65 million years, purely hypothetical. Purely hypothetical. They say, oh, well, they've done radiometric tests on those rocks. Do you even understand how these radiometric tests are run? You know, most evolutionists that I speak to have no idea. And when I tell them the truth, they don't believe me. And when they dare me to pull up the peer-reviewed papers to prove it, and I do, then they run off, calling me names usually. Uranium-lead is one of the isotopic tests that we use to date rock. Okay, generally used. You have to assume that this rock is like 10 million years old. It doesn't work well under anything like that. You have to assume, you have to presuppose that this rock is at least 10 million years old. Potassium argon, you have to presuppose and assume that the rock you're testing is at least 600,000 years old. What if it ain't? You know, Mount St. Helens went off, when was it, 1980? And it was about 20 years after the fact. A Christian went and gathered part of the lava gathered at the dome there, the lava dome at Mount St. Helens. They took it back and they had it tested with potassium argon. And they tested it as like 2.5 million years old. And it was only 20 years old. Now, he was doing it to prove a point. But then everybody ridiculed him. Oh, well, he should have known. You can't test, that potassium argon test ain't no good unless you're using rock that's 600,000 years old or more. So you see, they're presupposing all of these rocks are millions and tens of millions years old. Even though these other tests are telling them that the things that are encased in that rock are less than 250,000 years old. It can't possibly be 600,000 years old or 10 million years old. Can't possibly be. Not according to their math. And guess what? There's not a test out there that's been run that can prove these things can be longer than what preserved longer than what Mary has proven. Mary Schweitzer gave us 200-fold. Nobody has ever given us anything better. And I've had evolutionists come, oh, well, look at this paper. It says that you could probably do this. You could probably do that. Well, there's lots of hypothetical papers out there, my friend. Mary's was one of the first. But then she went on to do the actual test and proved only a 200-fold increase. None of these other papers have done that. None of them. None. Zero. So, in a nutshell, we have before us some very important information. This proves that evolution cannot be possible. It's just absolutely impossible that evolution has occurred. Why? Because you can't have a common ancestor for man and chimp inside of 234,000 years. You can't have the Pakicetus, a little dog-sized mammal, land-dwelling mammal. He can't evolve into a modern whale in 234,000 years. You say that's what's happened. You can't have a theropod dinosaur evolve into an Archaeopteryx and then have that Archaeopteryx evolve into a modern bird in 234,000 years. Come on, guys. It's just impossible. It can't happen. So, there you have the facts. There you have what was found, what was not found. There you have the breakdown of all the science. There you have the fact that this is not even science anymore if they're going to protect it and be biased. If they're going to say, no, we're not going to C14 test this bone because of the spin creationists can get off of it. You have ceased from science, Mr. Horner. The funny thing is, all of these people that want to seem credible, like Gould, Dawkins, and everybody, they admit to so many things. Dawkins has admitted that the sudden appearance of fully formed species like we find in the fossil record with no apparent evolutionary history favors creationism. And yet, quote unquote, we reject creationism. Then you're no longer practicing science. If you're going to kick stuff off the table just because you don't like it, you're not practicing science. When I began studying evolution, I studied it because I just wanted to know what the truth is. That's practicing science. Going where the facts go. If evolution were to be a fact, my friend, it wouldn't hurt my faith at all. Because the way I see it, God's God. God can do things any way he wanted to. If he wanted to use evolution, why not? But that's not where the facts lead us, my friend. As a matter of fact, the facts lead us to believe that evolution is not even possible, and yet it's shoved down our throats. Mostly by people who reject God, and then others who are just ignorant of these facts that we have just gone through. But we have theistic evolutionists, sure we do. But most of them aren't aware of any of this stuff. So, I know there were some people that said that they were going to be here and that they were going to challenge me on some of this material. So, if you're here and you want to challenge me on anything here, now is the time to bring it up. Speak now, or forever hold your peace. Anybody that wants to challenge any of this, I will bring you on right here, right now, and you can have your say. And in the meantime, I don't think anybody's going to jump up here and do it, and that's okay if you can't. That says enough all on this stuff. But in the meantime, while we're waiting to give these people a fair and honest chance, I want to say something. If you would like to be a guest or a guest host on one of these little things that we do, it's okay. I don't care if you agree with me. I don't care if you disagree with me. I don't care what your topic is. If your topic is science, evolution, abiogenesis, God, biblical doctrine, all you need to do is say so. You can email me. My email will be in here. And you'll see, if you look at my videos, I have other challenges for anybody that would like to speak, just to email me. It's hottopics at yahoo.com. That's HOTTTOPIKS at yahoo.com. HOTTTOPIKS at yahoo.com. I'll have this in the description in a little bit here. But just write me. Let me know what you'd like to talk about and when you might be available, and we will work something out, my friend. I'll bring you on. I don't mind at all whether you agree or disagree. We can talk about anything. So God bless you. And Doctor, thank you very much for joining in. I appreciate you, my friend. And I know I had 7 or 8 naysayers that said they were going to come in here and naysay and challenge me on this stuff. But you see, none of them showed up. That's okay. I love my naysayers too, just like I love you guys. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much for joining in. And if you would ever like to be a guest, let me know. Anything you'd ever like to talk about, let me know. And we will work something out. I'll bring you on. And it looks like nobody is going to challenge me. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you very much. This is Eric, a.k.a. Wolfbitten, and we love you very much. We appreciate everybody in our audience. We appreciate everybody that will hear this. We thank those of you who have subscribed. I would like for you to pass this to your friends if you would. Have them subscribe. A lot of this stuff is not going to be pushed by YouTube. I did have a channel with over 5,500 subscribers, and YouTube took it down for hate speech because it got a little bit political for a while there. And I just, I was advocating pressing charges against particular hierarchical families within politics on both sides of the aisle. The Bush family, the Clinton family. Let them have their day in jail. And for that, I was removed. Somebody wants to know. I do have a naysayer here. Somebody wants to know Why are you running from a moderated debate with Jord? Dude, I'm not. Jord is running from this moderated debate from me. Jord will not come on my channel, first of all, unless he is impersonating somebody. Like he tried impersonating a Brit. Okay? Probably because you're a bigot, he says. Well, as a matter of fact, I have a video showing me debating two bigots, my friend. No, just because I invite somebody on and they have to imitate a Brit instead of coming on as themselves, and then they run off when they get spanked and proven wrong, cussing. I wouldn't call me the bigot, my friend. I would call you guys with nemesis the bigots. You are a bigot. Jord is a bigot and a coward. Okay? I'm going to do another video shortly here. He tried to get somebody to see. He challenged me to a debate on modern day debate, and I accepted in front of an audience. And then he backed out. And then he tried to get the one who is McToon. Okay, McToon, one of the nemesis, the one that shut me up and wouldn't let me go. See, we had a debate set up, and George was trying to debate, but McToon said, "No, I want a better debater." So, what did he do? He got jail warrant. And then I got a guaranteed format that we had so many times. I had time for my opening statement. That's what I was given that. But when it came time for the cross-examination and when it came time for the open discussion, he muted me and let J.L. Warren talk his way through most of my time. So, no, Then he tries to get McToon's producer. If you can mute your opponents, it's not a debate. That's exactly what I'm saying. I was muted, moron. It wasn't a debate. And when I brought Jord on, moron, he was not muted. I'll pull that up for anybody. Go to that one with the Keystone Cops on the thumbnail and go to the last 40 minutes. You'll see Jord was not muted. So carry your false applications elsewhere. And so then we have, okay, and we have this, and you see none of these guys from Nemesis can challenge me on a single thing that I've said during this entire podcast. Not a one. So, when he wants to take me up on modern day debate, he's on. If he can't come on here, I promised to go to his channel. If he come on my channel, he doesn't want to do that. That's on him, not me. You guys are a bunch of punks. I'm sorry. You're a bunch of punks. You have no cojones. I would bring you on right now. Who here wants to come on right now? I want to give you that chance. I'm going to throw this out here. Now, if you want to come on, come right on in. I'll bring you in. There's not a one of you that intimidate me. Not a one of you have an idea what you're talking about. These guys say they stand up for science. They don't know the first thing about science. Jordan didn't know biological materials had a half-life. He had no idea. Hide behind your mute button. I didn't mute Jordan, moron. I have screenshots of the email he sent to MDD. No, he didn't. So, you send the link to Jordan. Jordan doesn't have any cojones, dude. So, you guys are... He is not blocked. That's a lie. Rules of debate. Do not mute your opponent. Then why did McToon mute me, moron? Okay, so there you go, guys. None of them will come on. You see that. Not a single one of them want to come on. You guys are laughable. You guys are hilarious. You don't know the first thing about science. Jordan was spanked in here when he was imitating a Brit. Okay, and we have some...
How about you keep lying about me?
Who is this?
It's your favorite topic, the person you've made 5 videos about. How about you keep lying about me?
Who is this?
How about you keep lying about me?
Who is this?
How about you keep lying?
Who is this?
Can
you want to introduce yourself, or do you want to be removed?
My name is Irrelevant.
Okay, we'll see it, Irrelevant. He doesn't want to talk. Let's see. He says his name is Irrelevant. So he doesn't want to talk. You see, nobody, none of you has the cojones to sit down and have a talk. You did mute your... No, I didn't. Geology Girl, you're lying. I challenge anybody to look in my videos and find the one with the thumbnail with the Keystone Cops and go to the last 40 minutes of it, and you're going to see Jordan imitating a Brit. You're going to see Jordan getting so many things wrong, and I'm very nice to him the whole thing, and not trying to rub it in his face that he's wrong about everything that he says. I also, I let him talk the entire time. He was not muted a single time. Not a single time. Oh, look, you muted him. I didn't mute anybody. I just kicked somebody off that wouldn't say who they were. So, the whole time he imitated a Brit, he was not muted. We talked for like 40 minutes, and he was gone. When he challenged me to a debate on modern day debate, I accepted. And then when he called me a liar and said that I didn't have the materials that I had, I called his bluff and pulled it up, and he cussed me, dropped his British accent, and took off running. No, you guys are Geology Girl. I'll bring you guys on anytime you want. But you guys have a good day. It's too bad you can't prove... All right, let me ask you something. Does anybody out there want to prove anything wrong that I said during this podcast? Anything at all? No, I don't have to bring Jordan on. If that was Jordan and didn't know how to introduce himself civilly, he can piss off, okay? So that's all there is to it. No, bring Jordan on. Tell Jordan to go set up that debate on modern day debate, and he can come on. I told Jordan I would go to his channel if he would come on mine. But he don't want to have that debate. I'm going to bring him on right now. Here he is. One last chance.
Hello.
Jordan, would you like to debate?
Yes, of course. I've been trying to set up a debate with you for months. The only issue is, my only stipulation is that you cannot have access to a mute button. Have you heard the stipulation?
I didn't mute you, moron.
Yes,
You're a liar.
Yes, you did.
When you came on,
I came on 3 times.
When you came on,
I had to pretend to be somebody else. I had to pretend to be somebody else to be allowed
Jordan,
to talk.
I'm going to kick you off if you don't shut up. When I brought you on and you imitated the Brit, we said that was the only time you came on and talked with any kind of...
No, that wasn't.
That was. Now, you let me finish. You let me finish. And then the whole time you were imitating a Brit. You were on for 40 minutes, dude.
You're wrong.
40 minutes, dude, you were on, and you were not muted.
You were.
That was the only time you talked
all
civilly.
wrong. I am sitting here telling you, I was the first person in that live stream. I
Yeah,
came
trying
on
to
3
give me an
different times,
English
and you
lesson.
kicked me every
Trying
time.
to give me an English lesson, saying
Look,
it's
that's
phylogenetic,
not what
not
that's not what we're
phylogenic.
here to talk about. Correcting
You said that.
scientific terms isn't a grammar lesson. That is discussing science.
Then you still don't know the difference between phylogenic and phylogenetic, do you?
Phylogenic and phylogenetic are two different things, and you're using them interchangeably.
No,
that is the problem.
You are saying phylogenetic when you should be saying phylogenic.
No.
Okay.
As every phylogeneticist disagrees with you, but okay.
I don't give a crap who you say disagrees with me. Let's talk about Let's talk about Aaron Ra for a moment, okay?
Aaron Ra's not important. He's not a.
Let's talk about him for a moment. Did he put together a phylogenetic tree or a phylogenetic tree?
It's phylogenetic.
Okay, then where's the genetic? Well, those fossils.
Up to a certain point, you can.
Where are the genetics of all those fossils?
Up to a certain,
No, the only genetics we had of living animals.
Can I finish my answer? Can I finish my answer?
Go ahead.
You know as well as I do that DNA degrades after a certain point. So you asking for these fossils, which you know have no DNA intact.
That's right. That means it's no longer a phylogenetic tree. It is a phylogenic tree at that point.
No,
genealogy.
Listen to me. At a certain point in the phylogenetic tree, at a certain point in the phylogenetic tree,
you can have a phylogenetic tree as long as you have the genetics of the things in that tree. Once you surpass that, you no longer have a phylogenetic tree. You have a phylogenic tree.
You're just making stuff up at this.
No, I'm not. That's the definitions, dude. A phylogenetic tree tracks the differences or the changes through genetics. So if you don't have the genetics, it's no longer a phylogenetic tree.
All right.
Okay, now listen. Jordan, another thing. Okay, I went to you guys' channel with SC Toon. I went there knowing full well what would happen to me. I told my friends, look,
nothing happened to you on SC Toon.
I told my friends, I said, you watch and see. I'm going to be muted. They're not going to give me my cross-exam, and they're not going to give me that open discussion. And that's exactly what happened. Now,
you're not allowing your opponent to finish his answers.
When he's giving a BS answer,
just like you're doing to me right now.
I have
you're cutting me off 3 words into my response, and you're expecting me to stop because you're about to mute me. That's how this goes.
No. During a cross-examination, if you're the challenger and the fellow you're cross-examining is giving a BS answer, you have all the right in the world to shut him up.
Just because you didn't understand what
you have all the right in the world.
Bullshit.
What? What is it I didn't understand? Name one thing.
What you didn't understand was you asking somebody in a debate for the falsification process of shut up, I'm talking. For all of the evidence in the evolutionary tree, we're talking about the stuff from very recently that we can show that is evolution. Which, again, you don't understand what evolution is. You think that a tire rusting is evolution when evolution is descent with inherent modification.
I'm saying
you don't know what inherent modification is.
If you are going to use the BS definitions, dude,
you don't realize that
Jordan. If you are going to use a BS definition and tell me that evolution is nothing but change over time, rather than the proper definition,
descent with inherent modification.
Are you going to be quiet and let me finish?
No, because you're misrepresenting my point. I didn't say it was changed over time. I said it was descent with inherent
No,
modification.
that's what Warren said.
No, that is not
That
exactly
is what Warren said. I asked Warren to give me the falsification process. Shut up, kid,
it
or
would
I'm
have
going
been
to beat you.
hilarious if
You
two
will
people
let me.
discussing the same topic.
Okay. I'm going to finish what I'm saying here, and then I will unmute you, kid. Okay? When you come on my channel,
Descent with
you come on with respect, or I will boot you from the room.
Descent with inherent modification means two organisms, their offspring are different from them. Do you disagree with that? Two organisms have an offspring. Are they different? Is the offspring...
Okay. Jordan is in the back. Now, what Jordan is talking about, I asked Warren, yeah, that's right, brother. They got nothing but drama, and that's a fact. I asked J.R. Warren for the falsification process of all of the things that he called transitional fossils. Where is it? Where's your falsification process? He says, I don't need a falsification process. I don't need to put my things through falsification. I don't need to put my hypotheses through falsification process. So Warren is not practicing science. Warren doesn't want to put his pet theories, pet hypotheses through a falsification process because they don't stand when they do. Now, yeah, I muted Jordan because he don't know how to shut up. Okay, now I want to bring him back on.
Yeah, no, you
okay,
didn't.
No. If you start with that, I will boot you again, buddy.
Boy, you're...
Now listen to me. I want to ask you something. If I ask you for the falsification process of a transitional fossil, what are you going to give me?
I'm going to point you to every evolutionary research paper that's ever been written and tell you to start reading.
I've read them all.
I'm in the middle of my answer.
In other words, he's not going to give me anything that's been falsified. I'm going to bring him back on it. Now, Jordan, when I bring you on, I'm going to ask you, do you have a paper that shows anything has been falsified that you believe in?
Listen.
No, you listen. Do you have any falsification at
You
all?
literally let me say one word, you fucking moron.
Do you? Well, bye. Okay, there you go. You see the little fella? He's a punk. He doesn't even know how to speak. Okay? That's how these people are. They don't know the first thing about science. They don't care about science. And they swear up and down, I'm standing for science. Yeah, they spend their time trying to defend the world from flat Earth. I kid you not. Jordan wanted to debate me. He can't find anybody to host his debate except for the guy that was the producer for the fellow that muted me and wouldn't let me debate. His name is Fight the Flat Earth. Craig from Fight the Flat Earth. That's right. This dude's about 20 years old. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 30. Looks like he still lives with mom. He looks like a pear with man boobs. The fruit, the pear. He looks like a pear with man boobs. And he has dumpster fire debates. That's all he has on the flat Earth. He swears he's a nuclear engineer with a degree, but that's all he does day in and day out. He's saving the world from the flat earthers. That's what he's doing. So this is the guy that Jordan wanted me to go on his channel and debate. So I said, okay, well, we're not going to have a repeat of what happened on Toon's channel. So I demanded some conditions. You want me on? Here's my conditions. And he says, okay, but I'm not going to have the condition of not reading any derogatory remarks in the chat. And I said, well, dude, you know, I'm outnumbered. All these 50 some plus members of Nemesis are in your group. So, they're going to be paying super chats to make derogatory remarks. I'm not going to do it if you're going to read them. He wouldn't concede to that one specific thing. So he doesn't want me on as a debater. All he wanted was another one-sided dumpster fire where I'm going to be muted one way or the other, okay? So, there he is, FTFE. Fight the flat earth. How you doing, buddy? Are you protecting the earth from the flat earthers? Happy? you know, that's just so hilarious. Claims to be a nuclear engineer with a degree and spending his life in dumpster fire debates with flat earthers, protecting the world from the flat earthers, protecting science from flat earthers. That's just a waste of a life, buddy. And yeah, he looks like a pear with man boobs. The fruit pear. Have you ever seen a pear? Well, put little arms and little legs and a Star Wars nerd face on it with a little pointed hair up top, and yeah, there you have Fight the Flat Earth. So, Fight the Flat Earth, I'm going to give you a link here. If you would like to come in, I will invite you into the chat. You're welcome to come on up. I will bring you in and we can have a talk. So, and I'd like to hear all about your degree. Nuclear engineer, protecting the world from the flat earthers. That, I think, is pretty hilarious, my friend. Protecting the world from the flat earthers. So, I don't see him coming up. Oh well. We see Jordan couldn't hang. Now, I challenge any naysayers to go to my videos where you will see a thumbnail of Keystone Cops. That's where Jordan imitates a Brit. And he comes on and he talks for 40 minutes and then claims that I muted him. When he hung until he dared me, he called me a liar and said I couldn't produce the information that I was giving to everybody. When I pulled it up, he takes off running. That's right, he takes off running, cussing after getting spanked. So, Jordan, you don't want to debate with me, kid. You really, you're just going to be embarrassed. Fight the flat earth. Dude, protect the world. That's all I got to say. Protect us from them flat earthers, man. Way to go. Dumpster fire heaven. That's too bad you can't agree to have a decent bald-faced lie, he says. Well, if it's a bald-faced lie, here's that link one more time. And you can feel free to come up and tell me where it's a bald-faced lie. So, Jordan is oddly obsessed with being spanked. So, here we go. The real FTFE, how you doing?
Fuck you, you lying piece of shit.
Oh, okay, well, have a great day. Some nuclear engineer. And there you go. There's the extent of Fight the Flat Earth's intelligence. There's a nuclear engineer for you that's saving the world from the flat earthers. He looks like a little pear with little tiny little legs and arms and that little nerd face of hair pulled up like this and watching Star Wars and getting all excited and oh, Star Wars. And yeah, so a little pair with man boobs. But thank you guys. It was fun. This last half hour was fun. I appreciate everybody for dropping in. We finally got our naysayers in. To everybody else, I want to apologize for their drama. They obviously aren't capable of any sort of a debate. I would let them come on and debate, but they are not capable. So anytime you guys think you are capable, feel free to drop on by. I will bring you up anytime. Fight the flat earth. Keep going, buddy. Protect the world from those flat earthers. We love you guys. Have a great day. This is Eric, aka Wolf Bitten. Have a nice day. We love you. Amen. Have a nice day. Thanks for watching.